1 in 4 cars on the road has hidden suspension damage, and most drivers have no clue. These failures quietly ruin tires, kill handling, and rack up repair bills fast. But today, we're breaking down 21 simple habits that protect your suspension, extend its life, and save you thousands. Most take just minutes to do, and the last one, it could reveal a factory defect your dealer will fix for free. Most drivers rotate their tires every 6,000 to 8,000 miles because that's what the manual says. But here's the catch. That schedule assumes perfect roads and perfect alignments, and most of us have neither. Potholes, curb hits, and even a misaligned toe angle can wear tires unevenly in half that time. Once that wear pattern sets in, rotating won't save the tire, it just spreads the damage. That's how one bad corner ruins an entire set. Smart drivers check tread wear monthly and rotate every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, especially on front-wheel drive cars where front tires wear faster. Even better, do it at every oil change. It takes minutes, helps tires wear evenly, improves ride comfort, and keeps your suspension geometry happy. Rotating tires isn't just about saving rubber, it's a hidden way to protect struts, bearings, and control arms from extra stress caused by uneven grip. Every winter, roads turn into chemical war zones. It's not just snow and ice, it's the salt, brine, and grime sprayed weeks before the first flakes fall. And that silent killer, it goes straight for your suspension. Springs snap, bolts fuse in place, and control arms rust from the inside out. These aren't cosmetic problems, they're structural failures waiting to happen. The worst part? You won't see it until it's too late. A $10 bolt becomes a $2,000 nightmare when it seizes and breaks during a simple repair. But there's a 10-minute fix that mechanics in the Rust Belt swear by. Before winter hits, spray your coil springs, bushings, and exposed suspension hardware with a lanolin-based rust inhibitor like Fluid Film or WD-40's Specialist Corrosion Inhibitor. These sprays don't just coat, they creep. They get into seams, repel water, and stay tacky all season long. It's not just for cold states either. Salt brine is being used earlier and farther south than ever before. Even a few weeks of exposure can start rot that ruins suspension geometry and wrecks your alignment. Missed it before the mess, and your bolts still spin free come spring. Forget to, and you're dealing with seized fasteners, snapped springs, and rusted mounts. This one habit can save you thousands in labor and give your car's undercarriage the armor it was never built with. It seems harmless, just a little rust spot on your coil spring, but that tiny chip in the paint, it's the beginning of the end. Spring steel is under constant tension, flexing and compressing with every mile. Once the protective coating flakes off, salt and moisture get in. Corrosion sets up shop, and over time it doesn't just weaken the spring, it causes it to snap. Sharp, fast, and often with zero warning. In thousands of cases, broken coil springs don't just sag, they stab. That jagged steel can puncture a tire at speed. Some drivers don't even know it happened until the tire goes flat or explodes on the freeway. The fix costs almost nothing. At the first sign of surface rust or flaking paint, brush the area clean, treat it with rust converter, then hit it with flexible enamel paint. Bonus points if you add a rubber coil sleeve to protect the lower wrap where most corrosion starts. It's a 10-minute job that protects a $400 spring and the $200 tire sitting next to it. It could even save your life. And the next tip, it protects something even more vulnerable than steel, and it rots in silence. Your suspension doesn't ride on metal alone, it rides on rubber, bushings, CV boots, sway bar mounts, and steering seals, and when those dry out, you don't hear a warning beep, you just get clunks, sloppy handling, or a $1,000 repair you never saw coming. Rubber lives a hard life. It bakes in summer heat, freezes in winter, and gets soaked with road salt and ozone every time you drive. And unlike metal, it doesn't always wear out. It rots. A bushing that starts out soft and pliable can harden and split in just a few seasons. That tiny crack spreads. Soon your alignment's off, your joints start clicking, and your steering feels like it's floating. Ignore it, and a $10 boot can take out your control arm or rack and pinion. The fix is stupid simple. Twice a year, wipe any visible suspension rubber with a rubber-safe plasticizer like AT205. It rehydrates the rubber, keeps it supple, and adds years of life to parts shops love to replace for $700. You've now protected the pieces holding your suspension together. But next, we're taking on a mistake that ruins all that work the second your car hits the ground. Most mechanics know to torque suspension bolts properly, but not all do it right, and if those bolts are tightened while your wheels are hanging in the air, your suspension may already be tearing itself apart before you even drive off. Here's the problem. Bushings are made to flex from a neutral position, the position your suspension sits in at normal ride height, but if the bolts are torqued while the car is lifted, the bushings are twisted from the start. The moment you hit a bump, that stress multiplies. Over time, the rubber cracks, the ride gets sloppy, and the squeaks start. Even worse, it can throw off your alignment and cause uneven ride height. That's why some cars look crooked after a repair. It's not the spring, it's a bushing fighting to untwist itself. The solution is simple. After working on any suspension arms or links, tighten the bolts with the vehicle sitting on its wheels or support it at ride height. This keeps the rubber relaxed, the alignment true, and your parts lasting longer. That protects what's under the car. Next, we'll deal with a hidden threat that creeps in from above. It only takes a single leaf in the wrong spot to start rusting your suspension from the top down. Modern vehicles route rainwater through hidden drainage channels at the base of the windshield, but when those cowl drains clog up with leaves or debris, water pools right over your strut towers, one of the most stressed and vulnerable points in your suspension system. Moisture seeps past caps and seals, soaking into strut mounts and rusting the tower from the inside out. Over time, this corrosion weakens your bearings, degrades bushings, and collapses support brackets. Some drivers don't find out until their tire leans in or a mechanic delivers a $5,000 repair estimate for a rotted-out tower. You can stop it with 5 minutes and a weed trimmer line. Just poke out those drains every spring and fall. It's one of the easiest and most overlooked tricks to extend your suspension's life and keep rust from ruining the ride. That protects the top end. But the next habit targets something much softer and more fragile than you think. Shock and strut boots protect the piston shafts from dust, grime, and salt. But when they crack or tear, debris gets in and chews through seals. That leads to premature leaking and total failure, even if the shock itself is still structurally fine. Your shocks and struts rely on one small piece of rubber to survive, the boot that covers the piston shaft. But when that boot tears or rots, dirt and grime get in fast, grinding away at the seals and causing premature leaks. You won't feel it right away until your ride gets bouncy and your tires start cupping. Every oil change, give those boots a quick check. Wipe off any grime and look for cracks or rips. If the boot's gone, it's not too late. Many can be replaced without removing the whole strut. A $15 boot today can stop a $300 shock failure next season. If you've ever heard a faint clunk over small bumps, chances are your suspension's been whispering a warning, and it's coming from the sway bar end links. These little joints connect your anti-roll bar to the suspension, helping control body roll in corners and keeping the ride stable. But over time, the bushings inside them wear down, especially in salted climates or after 70,000 and 90,000 miles. When that happens, even the smallest road bumps send sharp jolts straight into your strut towers and chassis mounts, and suddenly that $160 part becomes a $700 repair. Worse, many drivers misdiagnose the noise. They'll replace shocks, struts, or mounts, but the rattle remains, all because a simple joint quietly wore out and nobody caught it in time. The smart move? Replace both end links the moment you hear that first knock. Or better yet, before it ever starts. Greasable aftermarket links last longer, and when torqued with the suspension loaded, they keep everything working in sync. One small part, huge consequences if ignored. But if you think a worn link is dangerous, wait until you hear the next one. Bump stops are your suspension's last line of defense. When they degrade or collapse, your shocks bottom out directly, leading to internal damage, frame stress, and brutal ride quality. Most drivers have no idea they're even missing until it's too late. Your suspension has a hidden safety net. The bump stop, it's that small rubber block that cushions the blow when your suspension compresses fully. But here's the problem. Most are buried inside the strut assembly, and by the time they wear down or collapse, your shocks are bottoming out with metal-on-metal force. When that happens, your suspension starts taking hits it was never designed to handle. Shock pistons bend, strut towers crack, and the whole ride turns harsh and unpredictable. Anytime you're replacing struts or springs, check the bump stops. If they're cracked, crumbling, or missing entirely, replace them. It's a $10 part that can save your $300 shock from self-destruction. Over time, road vibrations, temperature changes, and minor impacts can loosen key suspension bolts, especially on control arms, sway bar mounts, and strut towers. Even a small amount of play can cause premature bushing wear, strange noises, or drifting alignment, but few drivers or even mechanics ever check bolt torque after the initial installation. Most people assume suspension bolts stay tight forever. They don't. Over time, vibrations from daily driving, potholes, and even seasonal temperature swings can loosen key hardware like control arm bolts, sway bar brackets, and strut mounts. That microscopic wiggle you ignore today becomes a clunk, then a failed bushing, then a $900 repair. The fix? Once a year, ideally during tire rotation, check torque specs and snug down accessible bolts using a torque wrench. Even a quarter turn on the right bolt can restore tight handling, eliminate steering play, and extend the life of surrounding components. Mechanics do this after a rebuild. Smart drivers do it preventatively. Low-profile tires might look sharp, but they're punishing your suspension with every mile. That tiny sliver of sidewall that comes with 35 or 40 series tires used to be your first line of defense. Now, every crack and pothole bypasses the tire's cushion and punches straight into your shocks, bushings, and bearings. It's not just the ride quality that suffers, it's the long-term health of your suspension system. And let's not forget the wheels themselves. Oversized rims are heavier, increasing unsprung mass and putting extra stress on your struts, alignment angles, and even wheel bearings. Many shops report seeing blown shocks and cracked bushings as early as 40,000 miles on cars with ultra-low profile setups. The fix? Stick close to your factory wheel and tire specs. If you love the look of a big wheel, aim for forged ones and keep the tire sidewall above a 45 series profile. That balance keeps your suspension happy without sacrificing style. Now that your tires are working with your suspension instead of against it, the next tip solves a common mistake that can wreck everything from handling to tire life without even driving. Replacing just one shock, strut, or spring might seem like a shortcut, but it's one that costs you in the long run. A new suspension component is firmer, taller, and faster to respond. Pair that with an old, saggy part on the other side, and your car's balance gets thrown off instantly. You'll feel it in strange body roll, uneven tire wear, and wandering steering. Even worse, the new part ends up doing double duty, wearing out faster and sometimes failing within a year. Most comeback jobs at suspension shops start with this mistake. A driver changes just one side to save money, only to return later with a ruined tire, worn-out match, and another alignment bill. Industry data shows that replacing parts in matched pairs, left and right, actually saves money over 3 years and gives better results immediately. If it's time for a new shock or spring, do both sides. You'll feel the difference in every corner and your tires will thank you. That's how you stay balanced, but what about those leaks that sneak in and quietly destroy your bushings from the inside out? That's where we're headed next. A single drip of oil might not look like much until it silently destroys your entire front end. Power steering fluid, engine oil, and ATF are all petroleum-based and they break down rubber fast, especially under engine bay heat. When those fluids drip onto control arm bushings or strut mounts, they don't just sit there. They soak in, soften the rubber, and turn once tight joints into mush. That mush lets parts shift, scrub tires, and throw off alignment all without you realizing it. It happens fast, too. In some cases, a leaky $12 hose has led to $1,000 plus suspension repairs. And by the time you hear a clunk or feel the float, the damage is already done. The solution is simple. Fix the leak early. Every oil change, take a quick look under the hood and beneath the car. If you see oily residue near control arms, bushings, or mounts, clean it off with brake cleaner and get that leak sealed. It's not just about stopping the mess. It's about stopping the slow motion failure of parts that cost real money. So now that we've stopped the leaks, what about the one thing drivers do every single time they park that's slowly killing their suspension? That's next. That little clunk when you turn your wheel all the way until it stops, that's your CV joints begging for mercy. Constant velocity joints are built to flex, but only within limits. When you crank the wheel to full lock and hold it there, especially in a tight parking maneuver, you're forcing the joint past its natural angle. That strains the internal bearings, overheats the grease, and stretches the rubber boot to its limit. In cold weather, it's even worse. One sharp turn can split the boot wide open. Once that boot tears, dirt gets in, grease gets out, and the joint starts grinding itself to death. Within weeks, that minor parking habit can cost you up to $2,000 in axle and sensor repairs. The fix? Easy. When you reach full lock, back off just one spoke. That small move reduces stress dramatically and keeps your steering system healthy for years. We've just protected one of the most abused joints in your front end, but now it's time to stop the hidden rust attack that quietly breaks your suspension from the top down. Even if you missed your suspension beforehand, road salt still accumulates in hard-to-reach crevices, especially around spring perches, control arms, and subframe pockets. If not flushed out, it keeps eating away at your suspension long after winter ends. Winter might be over, but the road salt stuck under your car is still working, corroding your springs, control arms, and even frame mounts long after the snow's gone. And a regular car wash, it won't touch the worst of it. That's why smart drivers do a targeted post-winter flush. Use a hose with a jet nozzle or a lawn sprayer filled with warm water and a drop of dish soap. Focus on the suspension's trouble spots, spring perches, trailing arms, and subframe pockets. If you got access to ramps or a lift, even better. Removing that salt doesn't just stop rust, it saves alignment bolts from seizing, prevents structural damage, and makes future repairs 100 times easier. Low mileage doesn't mean low wear. In fact, letting your car sit can quietly destroy your suspension from the inside out. When a car sits for weeks or worse, months, bushings stay compressed, shock seals dry out, and coil springs can lose tension. The result? Saggy rear ends, squeaky joints, and leaking struts. Even if your car barely has 30,000 miles, mechanics see it every spring. One short drive turns into a $1,200 suspension overhaul. The fix? Drive it once a month for just 15 minutes. You're not warming up the engine, you're flexing the rubber, equalizing spring loads, and relubricating moving parts before they degrade. Idling in the driveway doesn't cut it. Suspension needs motion, not just heat. That quick spin costs you nothing, but saves everything rubber, sealed, and under tension. But even a well-driven car can hide damage, especially after a nasty hit. That's why this next move is a must-do after any pothole or curb hit. Your car's ride height isn't just about looks, it's a diagnostic tool. When one corner sags or sits higher than the rest, it's often the first sign of a failing spring, worn shock, or collapsed mount. But most drivers never notice until the ride feels off or tire wear shows up. Over time, springs can lose tension, especially with heavy loads or age. Gas-charged struts can also leak slowly, lowering ride height without any obvious symptoms. Once a month, park on level ground and step back. Visually compare the wheel gaps side to side. If one corner's off, grab a tape measure and compare fender to hub distances. A difference of even half an inch can mean something's failing, and catching it early can save your alignment, tires, and suspension from further damage. Strut mount bearings are critical for smooth steering and suspension articulation. When they wear out, you'll get binding, popping noises, poor alignment retention, and uneven tire wear, all while the problem hides inside the top of your strut assembly. Your struts don't just absorb bumps, they also rotate when you steer, thanks to a hidden part most drivers forget: the strut mount bearing. And when that bearing wears out or seizes, you'll hear clunks, pops, or even feel your steering resist and then suddenly release, like it's sticking. The binding puts serious stress on your springs, upper strut mounts, and steering rack. Even worse, it throws off your alignment every time you turn, wearing tires unevenly and degrading ride quality fast. If your steering feels notchy or you hear creaks on low-speed turns, check your strut mounts. Replacing those worn bearings early keeps your alignment sharp, your handling smooth, and your suspension components from twisting themselves to death. Ever feel that harsh thud on a cold morning when you hit a pothole? That wasn't just the tire, it was your suspension taking a direct punch. Below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, tire rubber stiffens like plastic. That soft sidewall you rely on to absorb bumps? Gone. Now every crack in the road transfers straight into your ball joints, bushings, and control arms. Even your struts feel the blow. And if your tire pressure's low, that cold hit gets even more brutal, slamming metal against metal with every mile. The fix? Drive gently for the first 5 minutes. No hard corners, No speed bumps at full clip, just let the rubber warm up. As it softens, it cushions your suspension again and prevents early wear from cold, brittle impacts. Bonus, this habit also preserves tread life and helps avoid flat spotting, something winter drivers know all too well. Now that you've softened the blow, let's talk about what to do after your car really takes a hit, the kind that leaves damage you can't see yet. One pothole. That's all it takes to start a silent suspension disaster. You hit it, cringe, then drive on, thinking it's no big deal, but days later, your tire's worn funny, your wheel drifts to one side, or worse, you blow a strut and never see it coming. Research shows that 1 in 10 drivers ends up with a major repair after just a single road impact, averaging over $600 in damage, and it's almost always preventable. Here's what smart drivers do. After any serious jolt, whether it's a pothole, curb hit, or rough railroad crossing, stop and check. Pop the hood, peek under the wheel wells, look for cracked paint on coils, fresh fluid near struts, uneven wheel gaps, or one corner sitting low. Catching a bent arm, leaking seal, or cracked spring early means a cheap fix. Missing it? That's how a $60 bushing turns into a $2,000 suspension rebuild. You've learned how to spot damage. But what if your car is already qualified for a free fix and no one told you? The next tip could wipe your repair bill to zero. Imagine spending $1,800 on a suspension repair only to find out the manufacturer would have fixed it for free. It happens constantly. A broken control arm, a snapped spring, a rusted out mount. Many of these issues are already under recall or covered by technical service bulletins, TSBs. But if you don't check your VIN, you'll never know. Dealerships aren't required to tell you unless you ask. Here's how to flip that script. Go to your automaker's website or nhtsa.gov/recalls and type in your VIN. In under a minute, you'll see every open recall in TSB, some of which cover $500 to $2,000 repairs. We've seen toe link failures, collapsed bushings, and even strut tower rust, all handled for $0 just because the driver asked. Think of it as a cheat code for your suspension. Doesn't cost a dime, yet it could save you more than any other trick on this list. Your suspension's now stronger than ever, but there's one more system most people forget, and it's the reason your ride still feels weak and uncomfortable. Up next, how to double your AC's cooling power without tools, dealership visits, or expensive service. Tap here to cool things down. Most suspension damage doesn't happen all at once. It builds up silently through everyday habits, but now you've got 20 powerful ways to stop that damage before it starts. Skip them, and it's only a matter of time before the bounce, clunk, or drift shows up with a build a match. So take control before your suspension takes you for a ride.